Hey craft beer lovers, Geoff from Beer Cartel here with another live Facebook video straight from Beer Cartel HQ in Sydney. Hope you are all doing well. I'm doing really well. Just had GABS Festival in Sydney just on the weekend past. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the GABS Beer Festival, a couple of stats that may be of interest to you, as well as some of the beers that they're starting to release in bottles that we've gotten in stock from those GABS specialty beers. But before I go into those beers, I just want to do a quick little recap on the survey that we've been doing. So in the last couple of videos, I've mentioned our 2016 Craft Champion here by Richard, who's the other co-owner of Beer Cartel. And we're just trying to understand a bit more about the craft beer trends and what people are drinking, what they're enjoying with regards to craft beer. So we've had 2,000 people complete it. So if you have completed that, big thanks. If you're yet to complete it, you go in the draw to win $500 worth of craft beer. So you can still complete that. We'll have the link to the survey posted just underneath this post. So you'll be able to complete that and go into the draw. So that's staying open. The survey, you can complete that over the next couple of weeks. But the sooner you complete it, the sooner you go into the draw. So GABS, for anyone that was there, I'm sure you really enjoyed it. It was on last weekend here in Sydney, and the weekend before that was in Melbourne. And in a couple of weeks' time, they're taking it to Auckland in New Zealand. GABS, for anyone that doesn't know what that is, it's the Great Australian Beer Spectacular, and for short, it's just known as GABS. It's headed up by two guys, Steve and Guy from the Tap House. Big shout out to those guys. You did a great job. I think a lot of people really enjoyed themselves. The atmosphere was great, and as always, very entertaining, and the beers were sensational. So GABS has been going for about 4 years, I think, and this year, a couple of stats for you. So they ran it over 2 weekends, so Sydney and Melbourne so far, and they were up 22%. So they had 27,000 people attend one of the sessions, either here in Sydney or in Melbourne. And in Melbourne, I think they actually also had a big Ferris wheel, and it raised about $10,000 for charity. That was hosted, I think, by Yenda. So Yenda do a range of beers. It's a partnership with Coca-Cola as well, for those that are interested in knowing sort of where your beers are hosted by or brought to you by. But yeah, so GABS Festival, it's all around Australian and international breweries, so they get a whole heap of beers that are specifically made, 100 beers, and they are in sort of big 40-foot containers. So they ship around these 40-foot containers from Melbourne to Sydney and off to Auckland. And in the side of the containers, they've just got a whole heap of beer taps, and you go up, you get your paddle, $11 will get you 5 tasting paddles of 85 mils per taster, and you can try and work your way through. I do know one person that got through all 100 plus beers, the specialty beers, but he did attend both Sydney and Melbourne from memory. So yeah, if you're trying to do that in one session, it'd be very challenging. But there are some beers from the festival that they are now releasing in bottles. There is an embargo, so any beer that is released for the festival, brewers can't actually release it to market prior to the Saturday night of Sydney, for example, because obviously GABS want it to be special, and especially release beers for them, so they don't want it to be out in the market and people tasting it prior to being able to go to the festival. We've just gotten a few in over the last few days, because obviously we couldn't start getting them in until Monday, and we will look to get more in. So this is just the first sort of highlight of some of those beers that have come in from brewers. They're Australian and all Australian beers that we've gotten so far, and there's 3 from Victoria and 1 from New South Wales. So the first one I'm going to go and talk about is Sabotage by Shenanigans. So Shenanigans headed up by a guy called Sam, Gypsy brewer, based here in Sydney. And the Sabotage is their oatmeal stout, and it uses chilies as well. So expect a little bit of heat, but it's dark beer. And that's actually one thing to point out that I didn't talk about, is that a lot of the beers at GABS were either sours, IPAs, or dark sort of desserty beers. So if you are looking for some of the GABS beers, if you weren't able to make it to GABS, expect them to be either sours, IPAs, or dessert beers. And the one that actually took it out was the guys out at Bacchus up in Queensland, with their peanut brittle goes. So the guys up there, congratulations, Ross. I know that a lot of people tasted and a lot of people enjoyed it. They took best beer of the festival. So about this one, so that's Sabotage. That's from Shenanigans, based here in Sydney. That's one of the first ones that they've got. Got a Russian Imperial Stout from the guys at Hop Nation. So that's called the Kalash. So Russian Imperial Stouts. So expect slightly more alcohol. I think this one comes in about 8 or 9% from memory. Oh, sorry, 10%. So yeah, expect a little bit more alcohol. Obviously quite robust. And that's guys in Victoria from Hop Nation. Coffee IPA. So this can be polarising for some people. Some people don't like coffee in their beer. Some people love coffee and roastedness and the bitterness that you get, which is a bit different from coffee than it is from actual hops. So it's a coffee IPA, the Shiny. And that's from the guys down at Killisprocket in Victoria as well. It's a 500ml bottle. And Brew Cult, so this is the last one that we've gotten in. So Brew Cult, some of you guys might be familiar with Hendo. So Hendo actually took out last year's best beer with his Milk and Two Sugars, which is an Imperial Stout, Imperial Milk Stout brewed with coffee. And this year he brings us a spiced gingerbread stout called Ginger Maniac. It's a sweet stout with spices, 8%, limited edition, 330ml bottles. And that is just being released to independent bottle shops as well. So you'll be able to get that available either online or in store. And for me, the picks of the beers that were at GABS, because obviously we've got 4 bottles here and we're looking to get more bottles, more beers in bottles that are made available by the brewers. But if you've missed out, go to the usual suspects. So guys like the Tap House, Royal Albert, Bitter Few, they often get kegs of beers that either weren't used up at the festival that brewers have got in excess. So if you weren't able to get through all the beers at GABS, or there was some that you want to revisit, or you didn't make GABS at all, you can always go to those venues and also try the beers on tap over the coming weeks. For me, the picks were Brewdog's B-side Sour Red Ale. That was quite nice. Econ Brewing did a No Compassion IPA, which was very, very good. And the guys at Pirate Life did an Imperial IPA, or Imperial IPA, double IPA. It's probably more like a quad IPA or a triple IPA. It was at 14%, but definitely did not drink like a 14% beer. So they would be my picks for the beers. And as mentioned, we've got these ones available. The one thing I should mention, the Sabotage, currently just in store, but in the next day or so will be available online. And as the rest come in, they'll be available in store and online as well. And if you've got any questions, just pop them in the comment box below, or give us a shout out or send us an email, or come visit us in store. As always, thanks for tuning in, and happy drinking.